Hey, Dave from Head Games here. Today we're going to discuss a very special cylinder head that came into us from Junior. Junior was tuning this car, and the car wouldn't make any power. So he's like, you know what? Take the cylinder heads off, send them to Head Games, let them check it out, and we are going to show you what we found. Check it out. Now, we don't normally bring a cylinder head from somebody else's shop and dissect it really anywhere. We don't put it online. We don't say, hey, this guy does garbage work. Now, we're not going to mention who actually ported this, but there's a lot to unpack here, and I want to just show you guys how bad or where this guy messed up. And so maybe you can spot it out if you ever get this done and not pay for it or get your money back right off the bat. And this is why it's important to go to a shop that does cylinder heads for a living. Now, don't get me wrong, some of them don't do the best work either, but you have a better chance of getting a quality job out of a guy who does port cylinder heads, has a better understanding of it, than your local mechanic who's saying, hey, I can port your head for you and I can bolt your turbo kit on. There is so much to unpack here that I really don't even know where to start. But we're going to start with measurements. Measurements are very important. Now, this guy, I've set it to this port here. So if you see here, the divider, get kind of like a slight pull, slight tug here. You see this. This is kind of, you can move it around a little bit. But then we move it over here. Let's put the light in there so you can really see it. Look at that. It won't even go in. It won't even go in that side. Now, when you have a port that is not the same size, how are you going to tune it? And it's not like it's slightly off. It's way off. The port was actually over 2 millimeter or 80 thousandths from side to side. 0 ports are the same. I just want you to admire. You might actually even get seasick in here. It's so wavy. It's like waving at you. See how like the big divots here, there's huge divots. Now it was ported with the guides in it. You can tell that because it's been sanded and some of it has been chipped away. This is why that we remove the valve guides before we do our porting. And you can see there's big divots here, lots of trenches. It's almost like maybe we're building a creek or something. I don't know. There was something being built in here, but it wasn't a good cylinder head port. So how did this become so ugly? So I believe that these are the tools that he was using. I could be wrong, but as you can see, they're very choppy, right? This very choppy, and they have this shape to them. And these will build trenches if you don't know how to use them correctly, because there's really not a lot of surface area. At least on this one, there's a big point, and you really don't have anything that follows the shape of a Subaru. And this is why we use the Super Spiral by Head Games. As you can see, the total difference in these burrs and how they're shaped. And as you can see here, there's no point to it like that, and there's more surface area to grind, and this will create a much smoother cut. The other issue I see here is what it looks like there's a lot of trenches. And the way you're going to build a trench is you go back and forth like in this motion when you should really be doing this motion. So what this guy did was he created a trench here. He created, well, the whole thing's pretty much a trench, and he was putting it with the guides in it. So there's really nothing you can do to make this area bigger, which is a huge no-no. And there's big transition here. And he took the divider out. What's that do? So the problem with taking the divider out is the divider actually adds airspeed. And when you take out the airspeed, you're not getting it back. So if you can see here, there is some trenches all up in this area here. And I believe that's because, again, he was doing this in and out motion to create these trenches. Now, I do the same thing if I'm trying to make a fin, but a fin here is not really what we're looking for. And there's a trench here, and there's a trench there, and everywhere is a trench. And the other problem you can see is, well, there's not a straight line anywhere in the port. But you see how this line particularly is bigger than this side? So this goes into our last video where we do X's to get, so you can tell this guy doesn't watch any of our videos. But what he was doing is going like this. So that creates a big hole right here because he's just making that thing gigantic. So the trenches continue into the bowl area. He was sitting there making this a trench and this a trench, and here's a trench, and there's a trench, and then we're gonna just kind of make a really big trench right there. But here is the bigger issue. Now if you look here, the 45-degree angle is thicker on this one than it is on this one. And there was an even bigger issue, is that this is the stock valve job that this was blended into and made into a radius, but they were using an oversized valve. Now an oversized valve, the 45 would be out here and it's in here. So that was the first tip off. But you can't just put an oversized valve in the wrong, like you need to valve job it. It has to actually fit. The 45 needs to be towards the edge of the valve. And the other problem here is that it has a valve guide. So a bronze guide was installed, and that's cool, but you need to valve job it because the valve seat or the valve centers off of this hole. So if you don't put a pilot in here and valve job this, now you're going to have a valve that just does not seal correctly. And that's why you see the difference in the widths of the 45, because that's what the valve is beating on. The exhaust side was just as spectacular as the intake side, but at least you can see here, here's the gasket line. The guy maybe knows something because he didn't try to gasket match it, but he did not make a circle. And if you watch one of our other videos, or maybe if you can send it to him, although I'm not telling you who he is, he can learn how to make a circle and not make it squarish like this is. On the dogleg side, you can see that right there? So that is because he built a trench here, built a trench here, and actually the rest of the port on the dogleg is bone stock, because obviously we have no talent anywhere and he's not gonna be able to get all the way in there. And the last stop of our tour is the short turns. You can see here there were some big trenches built into, like maybe right here, and then another one right here, and this was left not a turn but an actual like squarish feeling piece here. I'm not sure what's accomplished here, but this is a total disaster. Comparatively speaking, this is the head game support. We make the divider, we make a fin out of the whole thing, and I assure you that, as you can see, all the lines are straight, all the port is straight, there is no trenches built. Guides are actually put in after it is ported, sanded, and this thing looks beautiful. Now, I know it's a different thing to crap on somebody else's work, and we don't normally do it, but I think it goes into what we've been trying to show on our page, is how to port something and how not to port something. So obviously this guy should put the grinder down, or he should just maybe pay attention to more of our videos and he would pick something up and not be so terrible. At least he has the guts to do it, and that is half of it. That's it for me today. Please like, subscribe, comment below. Toodles.